It's time for episode 87 of The Crisis Show here on Google Hangouts, on YouTube, and wherever else you have this link around the world. Good evening from New York City. My name is Rich Klein. I'm president of Rich Klein Crisis Management and founder and host of The Crisis Show. Today, we're going to do an abbreviated version of the show to talk about the tragedy in Texas last Saturday at a DuPont chemical plant in which 4 employees were killed. Today it's being reported they died of asphyxiation. That's what the coroner is saying. So that's the latest development in the story. But the reason I wanted to focus on this is because for many years, talking to clients and doing the show, I continually see mistakes, major mistakes made by CEOs and other executives when there are serious crisis situations such as this. This incident happened last Saturday. I believe it was November 15th, and here we are November 19th, and still here we are without any statement or visible presence of the CEO of DuPont. And that's really troubling to me because when you have employees who die and or who are seriously injured, you really need to be the public face of the company. You can't just issue a statement that has no attribution, as DuPont did. And you can't, 4 days after the deaths and the tragedy, not be public and not show compassion in a very public way. The court of public opinion is very important in a serious crisis. And in this case, DuPont is failing miserably. Their spokesperson and their plant manager were the people that DuPont decided would be the appropriate people to issue the statement. Those kinds of people, plant managers and spokespeople, are fine with much more minor situations. But when you have employees that died, in this case, 4 employees and at least 1 injured, you must, as a CEO or president or founder of a company, be visible. Even if it's just initially on social media or just initially in the release of a media statement. But I'm really troubled by this. A company like DuPont, a global company, should know better. There have been so many case studies of crisis situations just like this. In fact, DuPont itself has been involved in some of these crises. So there's a lot of history inside the company. There are other companies that have demonstrated how to do this right. So one of the things, in addition, that you have to think about when a crisis like this hits is what words are you going to choose and what actions you're going to take as a leader to connect with your critical audiences. So before a crisis like this happens, and by the way, DuPont has had incidents like this, and they're currently being investigated for some other incidents in which there were deaths at other plants. But what you need to do is make sure that the statement you issue really has compassion first, that you express condolences, and not be defensive as a company. So we're going to take a quick look at the statement that DuPont released, and it's the one that they're sticking with, if you will. This was released on November 17th. And they start out correctly. There are no words to fully express the loss we feel or the concern and sympathy we extend to the families of the 4 employees who died on November 15th and their coworkers. We continue to be directly engaged with the families to provide them every measure of support and assistance during this difficult time. And by the way, folks, you'll see from this link that I attached to the show, there's no attribution. It just says contact Aaron Woods, who's been the person quoted in the media. When you have a serious crisis like this, you really need a quote or attribution from the top of the company. And that's the big mistake here. Anyway, the next paragraph reads as follows. We are working closely with local, state, and federal authorities as they conduct a thorough investigation into the incident, which will take some time. As part of that investigation, we are conducting our own top-to-bottom review of this incident, and we will share what we learned with the relevant authorities. We are reviewing the facts, and what we know is that, and then they go into the release of this methyl, I believe it's methyl mercaptan, a product commonly used to odorize natural gas for safety purposes. And then they go into saying that the release was contained to a certain area, and that after the medical examiner determines the cause of death, they'll begin notifying employees' families immediately. Apparently, from what I read on some of the social media reports, there was a long waiting period between the time of this incident and the time the families were notified that, in fact, their loved ones had perished. And by the way, my hearts and prayers go out to them. This was just such a tragedy. So when you're releasing a statement, what DuPont did right, and they did very little right here, but what they did right is they started out with some compassion. What they did wrong was they didn't put it in anyone's mouth. So it doesn't have that heartfelt feeling and doesn't have a face of the company at all. So this is a good lesson for those of you who are contemplating crisis situations in your own organization. This will be another case study, and if it's not, I'm going to make it one, because I'm just really surprised and frankly kind of frustrated that and angry that this CEO didn't see the need to be more public. Now, very often in these situations, those of you who are leading companies out there know this, that very often the attorneys say, don't say anything, we have to protect you. And of course, there was a lawsuit already filed by one of the families of the victims. That's in the news today. And so they're so worried about liability that they hide, and they hide too much. So there's a delicate balancing act that you can do, which is, express condolences, make a public statement without it necessarily admitting liability. And I think people go overboard, and companies and boards of directors go overboard in trying to protect liability, but at the same time, they're really, A, hurting the reputation, and B, influencing the court of public opinion in a negative way about their company. So DuPont is the company. It's the case study this week. We'll continue to follow the story and maybe do a follow-up when there is news to report, when the CEO finally does come out of her shell, and I hope she does, and makes a statement that that really shows she cares about not just these employees, but all your employees. Because think of it, folks, if you can't be visible in a situation like this, what message does that send to your thousands, and in DuPont's case, I believe tens of thousands of other employees, about your concern for their well-being? Okay, so again, check this out, DuPont. You can go to the website. If you Google the company, the Houston Chronicles had some good coverage of this, and stories will continue to trickle out about this incident. Again, this is Rich Klein. For more information, please visit thecrisisshow.com, on Twitter @thecrisisshow, and in my company, Rich Klein Crisis Management. Thanks for watching.